This is the Lippin Putts Podcast here in the Better Rate Mortgage Studio, presented by Woodward Sports. We've got a ton to get to this week, Sam. I keep thinking we keep having like our most jam-packed episodes, but this, I would assume, is probably going to be one of our most jam-packed ones ever.
Oh, yeah.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah, and I'm happy to be here. There's a lot of news to talk about. Obviously, this is our first episode with like a, major championship recap. We did the one, our first episode was a few weeks after the PGA. Some more news within the world of LIV Golf. And then we got the upcoming Travelers, but obviously the most excitement, U.S. Open champion Matt Fitzpatrick wins one shot over Scotty Scheffler and Will Zalatoris in what was an awesome kind of three-way battle on Sunday at Brookline. And really one of the most exciting, I think, fun U.S. Opens to watch in a long time.
Yeah, to me, it had a little bit of resemblance kind of to the U.S. Open at Chambers Bay when you had Brendan Grace up there and Jordan Spieth, and then obviously you watched Dustin screw that up on the last hole. Yeah. So like that was a fun one, and that's why I kind of equate like this past US Open. Like I had so much fun watching the US Open all weekend long because like it wasn't a runaway. There weren't like the powerhouses at the top of the leaderboard after round one and round two. So like going into the weekend, it was just a wide open event that you really honestly had no idea who was going to win up until, the final hole.
Yeah. No, and I think you kind of hit it on the nail on the head there. The greatest thing about this U.S. Open tournament is you get a lot of these no-name guys that a lot of people haven't heard of who crawl up to the leaderboard, and you see them deal with the pressure of a major championship. And I don't know, I just don't remember loving the U.S. Open as much as I did this week. I typically rank the Masters as my favorite major, and then the Open. But this one was a lot of fun to watch, and I mean, I think a great champion. But just a really fun event all around. And we'll obviously dive into many things that happened throughout the week.
Well, I think to kind of start it off, is I think one, the history of being at the country club at Brookline. We heard, how many times did you hear the Francis Ouimet story on the cover?
If I had a quarter. No.
Yeah. I mean, I love that movie. Like we've talked about it before. I love that, but man, did they shove that story down your throat.
Well, and then the best was on the first day, Stuart Hagestad's like popping off.
Yep.
And we posted it that he was an amateur leading, but they were like, oh, isn't it just great? And 9 holes into the tournament, an amateur leading this event where Francis Ouimet won, and then like literally 3 holes later, he was at 2 over.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest things because he was solo leader by himself, amateur, and then boom, as soon as like all these media outlets, I mean, us included, as soon as we started posting about it, it's like, it's almost like he saw the tweets and just shit his pants and fell backwards.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens. It is a U.S. Open. You get out in front, you shit yourself.
Yeah,
like that. It's unless you've dealt with it before. And so like, let's talk about Matt Fitzpatrick. We talked about I'm a little bit last week, few names, but he's been knocking on the door. He's never won a PGA Tour event. He's won some big events on the European Tour. But by far, obviously, his biggest win in his career, he won the U.S. Am at Brookline, which talk about something else they mentioned 5 million times. But an awesome way to win, and he's had a few close calls. He played like shit on Sunday at the PGA, but then he's been in contention with a few other events, knocking on the door. But like, he went out and got it.
Yeah.
17 greens on the final day. You wouldn't even get to see much of his cross-handed chipping. The dude played a phenomenal round of golf, shot 68, one by one, dealt with all the issues, made that bomb on, I think it was 13,
yep.
And then hit that incredible shot on 15 from the gallery. So all kudos out to Matt Fitzpatrick. It was a ton of fun to watch him win that tournament.
Well, and I think one of the best shots that I've ever seen in major championship history was in the bunker on 18 too.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw a lot of guys. I mean, we saw John Rahm on Saturday when he had the lead, ended up in one of those bunkers and hit it into the lip of that bunker, double. And then made a double there. But like that shot, like the balls you have to hit a shot like that in that situation, like everyone's talked about it. I mean, a lot of golfers know like fairway bunker is one of the hardest shots to hit in the game. And he stood up there and then knocked it to 20 feet or so.
Yeah.
And just.
Well, and think about it. I mean, 72nd hole of a U.S. Open, so you're already shitting yourself in general because it's a big shot. By the way, the guy who you're playing with, one guy's posted 5 under, you're 6 under, and the guy you're playing with just striped one down the middle and has, I think it was like a long wedge into the green. And Will Zalatoris, and you got a 1-shot lead on him. So I'm in a fairway bunker with this knob in front of me. I don't think it was like fully in front of him, but you definitely dealt with it. And what's the big concern whenever you hit a fairway bunker shot? Catching it fat.
Yeah.
And there's that deep bunker that you talked about. Rahm doubled the day before. I mean, and he didn't even take his time. He just went through his normal process, quickly got up there, committed something, hit it, and friggin' flagged it to 20 feet, and gave himself a chance to even win it without even having Will putt.
I feel like everybody that we saw in that bunker the entire week went from that bunker to the bunker in front of the green, and then they try to get it on the upslope essentially, so you can get up and down for a par. Which, I mean, a lot of these guys are good bunker players, but I think part of what helped him too is he obviously had a huge adrenaline rush. Like that helps you fly the ball a little bit further. Like I don't know if that's in a third round or second round, like he hits it as far as he actually does.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, like, normally you get these guys who are getting a chance to win their first major, they start moving really quickly. You get out of sync, specifically in a golf swing that is so based on timing. Well, I mean, you're talking milliseconds that things can be off. And then in a fairway bunker, the room for error is even tinier.
Well, that was the big thing with Mito Pereira at the PGA, right? Like,
yeah,
him on 18, like literally, it looked like he was running through his whole routine, and then took one of the ugliest swings we've ever seen in major championship history.
Yeah.
So like that, those are the things. But I mean, he was laughing on 17. I mean, Matt Fitzpatrick never really seemed fazed by the whole ordeal.
No, and that's the crazy thing for a guy who he's never like lost a major. I mean, he's like I said, he's been in contention. He's had bad Sundays, but there hasn't been like that full scar tissue. Like we want to talk about scar tissue, we can talk about Will Zalatoris and stuff that he's building up and almost starting to deal with. But like, I don't think of these ever times where Matt Fitzpatrick really gave something away or not. I mean, he's obviously had chances to win and he's had bad Sundays, but man, he just went out there and got it and now becomes the second ever golfer, second male golfer to win a USAM and a US Open at the same venue, along with Jack Nicklaus, which how big of a deal is it? I don't know, but it's something that they love to talk about and chirp and everything like that. So it's a crazy thing to think of, and like kudos to Matt Fitzpatrick. He becomes, I think, number 10 in the world, which it's like, I think there's like 40 guys who could be top 10 in the world at this point. But no, he went out there and got it. Well deserved to him. And it's just been a lot of fun to watch, to join that list of major champions with Scotty Scheffler and Justin Thomas now for this year. Well,
and he kind of was in contention all week, right? Like he was always around the leaderboard. They talked to his brother, I believe, in an interview on Thursday or Friday of the first and second round, and his brother was like, "Oh, I'm gonna head back overseas because he played
for the Irish Open."
Yeah, because he played in the first LIV Series event. And they talked. He said, "Well, maybe he's in contention. I'll stick around." Well, sure enough, he stuck around, and
he didn't. He actually flew home. He flew home and then literally checked, because I think he flew home on Saturday. Checked, and all of a sudden Fitzpatrick was much closer to the lead. Scheffler had come down. And he literally was like, "All right, I gotta go right back." And so he flew back. So he did.
I missed that story.
Yeah, he talked about it on the broadcast Sunday. But I mean, it's crazy. And he was on the bag for him when he was a rookie. And then did you see all the outpouring of support for Billy Foster, the caddy?
Yeah,
he had 40 years of caddying. He was on the bag for Lee Westwood, other guys. The amount of close calls he had, and he gets his major, it's a big deal. I mean, it almost seemed like a bigger deal to Billy Foster than it did Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick went over and consoled him. Not usually you see it in reverse fashion, the caddy will go, and that's what we've seen it now the last couple of years. I think it started with Hideki winning the Masters. The kind of these caddy stories that go along with these guys winning. Obviously people don't know the history or background of some of these caddy stories, but Billy Foster, they said, essentially one of the all-time great caddies without a major victory. So the fact that he gets his now, just to see the emotion on his face as soon as they realized that they won was a very, very cool scene on the 18th green.
For sure, yeah. So Fitzpatrick goes 68, 70. When the course was playing pretty good, pretty tough on Thursday, Friday. Then on Saturday, it's when it really bit, and the teeth showed. And he shot another 68. To obviously get in position to tie for the lead with Will Zalatoris, the Rahm double bogey in the last hole. He would have been, at 500, had the lead going in. But then you get Fitzpatrick and Zalatoris in the final round, and a really just good battle from them. And Scotty Scheffler, kind of the best player in the world, had the best year so far, still loses this major in second place by one shot, and he's still flying under the radar to a lot of people. It is crazy to think that.
And I was watching the broadcast with some friends and family, and it was Scotty. He's just there's no you have to like Scotty Scheffler. There's no way that if anyone says they didn't like Scotty Scheffler, I just assume they have character issues, because he's just he's so well spoken. You can tell he's enjoying the game. He's shown emotion on the golf course before. I go back to the guy that finished, I think he finished tied for 5th. Yeah, Colin Morikawa. They talked about all weekend. That was one of my favorite storylines from the weekend is on Friday and Thursday and Friday, they talked about him struggling he can't hit a cut right now. Like he's lived and died by the cut his whole career. And then like 6 months ago, he starts hitting a baby draw and literally can't get out of it. He's done everything he can. Oh, meanwhile, he just happens to be leading the U.S. Open after 36 holes. I was like, okay, cool story. And then Saturday happened.
Ooh, yeah, and that happened to a lot of guys. I mean, he shot 77, Morikawa did. But then he bounces back the next day.
And shoots 66 again.
But as he was in the lead going into the weekend, I was like, man, this was a perfect thing for Morikawa to win, perfect major, because the 2 majors he's won, yes, he's been really good, but then he kind of like cools off. And what he's got is like the high variance of really good play and not bad play, but just not great, where he's getting T30, T40, and he becomes all of a sudden forgotten again. And it's like he was forgotten going into this major. Oh, lo and behold, leading going into the weekend and that stuff. And I fully expected him to be the one to get it done. Yeah. Shooting 77, was not expecting that on Saturday.
No, I was not either. Yeah. Especially like when they said he was already struggling, but his already struggling was 6 under. You didn't think it could really get any worse, right? Like he was essentially winning the tournament with his C+ game, I would call it. Based on what he says, like he says he hates hitting it, he doesn't like hitting a draw. He's been very vocal about that. So I thought that was a fun storyline going into the weekend. Obviously, we saw him fall back. Justin Thomas was floating around there at 6 under, at 1 over. But he was 6 or 7 shots back going into Saturday. Yeah. I was looking at him. I was like, okay, this is the one guy in the field that I think can come from that far back and win it up. But he didn't have a good Saturday.
You know who did have a good Saturday, though, that we're burying right now? And really, I think he might have had the round of the day that day, was Will Zalatoris.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about him. I mean, he is one of 2 players to have 3 top 10s in majors this year. The other guy named Rory McIlroy.
Ever heard of him?
Yeah. He has 2 runner-ups in majors, including, obviously, the loss in the playoff to Justin Thomas and then this. But, yeah, he had the round of the day on Saturday, shot 67. Went from 1 under to 4 under to tie for the lead. And at one point, I started watching because I was golfing that day. That was like the one day of coverage that I didn't get to watch a ton of, which was a bummer because that was like the most fun day to watch.
Yeah.
But he went out and played an exceptional round of golf, had a few putts go in, but that's his game. That's what we talked about on last week's podcast. Same with Fitz. Both guys who, when the winning score is going to be closer to even par compared to like the 20 under it is in a normal PGA Tour events, that's where these guys really excel. Yeah. The ball strikers, that stuff where, hey, they're going to make some putts. But it's funny. I heard that he's over 130th in putting, Will Zalatoris is, on PGA Tour this year. He's in the top 10 in majors in putting. And it leads me to believe, like, what is the difference in that? What's the thing? And I truly think it's, the greens are probably harder to make from 6-7 feet, or those kind of 50-50 putts for a lot of the other pros. But because he ball strikes it so well, he's putting himself in good positions. It's so odd to think that he's so much of a better putter in a major championship when the lights are the brightest. I want to understand that, and I can't.
Well, and there was another stat too about his putting that, like, from outside of like 20 or like outside like 10 feet, he's one of the better putters on tour. But you get him from like the 4 to 8 range, and that's where that's where a lot of like his troubles lie. And it's not necessarily like that he's missing like a lot of par putts or anything. He's just not making birdie putts when he's from that distance, because he does have the best average on tour as far as proximity to the hole. So like you said, ball striking comes in, but he's not making like a lot of birdies, which I think in Tiger essence is Tiger led the tour in ball striking for years, but also led the PGA Tour in putting as well.
Yeah, exactly. And he talked about after that round on Saturday, he said, you know, I played the round as conservative as I possibly could. You know, I wasn't going at flags, even with wedges in my hand. I was playing 20 feet left, 20 feet right, and I was just taking advantage of some of the good shots that I had. And so it was an exceptional round of golf. I'm truly gutted for him. Yeah. I mean, like, talking about building up scar tissue. You know, he's played in, I think, now 9 majors at this point. He has a withdrawal, so cut it back to 8. You know, miscut back in like 2017 when he was irrelevant. So basically 7 majors he's played in, 1 miscut, 6 top 10s. Including, I think, 3 runner-up finishes. Like, that's just one. It's very impressive for a guy who beginning of the pandemic, no one had a freaking clue who he was. He was tearing up the Korn Ferry Tour. And then because of like the whole pandemic, they didn't know how they were going to do qualifying for some of these events. He was able to get into the U.S. Open because of like they said we're going to take the top 5 guys on the Korn Ferry points list. Made the cut there, had a top, I think it was like a 6th place finish at Winged Foot. But yeah, I mean he has just jumped up and he has excelled, and he's now 12th in the world without winning an event. That's crazy to think.
Yeah, well, I mean, you keep finishing high in these. I mean, obviously, all these fields that have the best players in the world, like you're going to move up. But I guess my question is for you: is like if you're Will Zalatoris, do you change anything? Do you change anything about your game, or do you just continue to go out and play well, and eventually, like you're going to run into one of these majors?
Yeah, so I think it's something that I've heard a lot, and I think it's hard to say because like for example, let's talk about Scotty Scheffler. He's been in position a lot, especially in that like 6 tournament span where he won 4 times, and he was just finding ways to get it done. That's not always going to happen. Right. You talk about like Tony Finau when he kept getting these like 2nd place finishes. Man, you just keep playing well. Eventually, one of these things are going to go your way. So if you want to relate it to what I heard on another podcast, like Colin Morikawa, he's really been in contention twice, and you could say maybe this was the 3rd time, but twice going into Sunday, and he's won both majors. Will Zalatoris the other way just hasn't, and I don't think it's because he's like folded by any means.
No, yeah.
That's where I would say it. It's not like the pressure's getting to him. I just think there was another guy who happened to have a phenomenal round, and one of these times you just keep putting yourselves in those positions, the stuff is going to bounce your way.
Right.
Now, the one thing we could say is Will Zalatoris had 4 birdies and 6 holes midway through that round on Sunday. He ended up taking the lead, and then he quickly kind of fell back. You saw him all of a sudden miss the fairway, but he talked about it. I didn't hit the driver well, and if anything, it wasn't the putting that cost. It wasn't anything. It was I did not hit the driver that well. He missed the fairway on 13, which he made bogey. Where 15, where he made bogey, and Fitzpatrick made that birdie.
Yep.
Granted, Fitzpatrick hit it like 60 yards offline, and Zalatoris was 6. But that's just it's gonna have to happen. And so yes, I think there's gonna be scar tissue, and you start to worry that the more you get in that position, you more start thinking like, man, when is this going to happen? But I haven't noticed it yet, and that's the surprising thing to me.
Yeah, I think to your point, it's like you have to go out there and take it, and he's not really going out there and taking it from that standpoint. Like that's just what it is. He's playing solid in these final rounds, but he's not playing great, I guess you could say. And that's truly the difference. Like that's how minuscule it is, I think, in any professional sport, and especially with golf. Like he just like Fitzpatrick happened to finish just 1 stroke better. Like that's all it took is that 1 bogey. Like
yeah, the heartbeat thing I look at is there was 4 guys under par on the weekend in the U.S. Open.
Yeah,
4 guys. Will Zalatoris 67, 69. That's 4 under. Matt Fitzpatrick 68, 68, 4 under. Denny McCarthy 68, 68, and then Gary Woodland 69, 69. That's going out and playing very well golf. So it's like you could say they just ran out of holes. It had the tournament been 22 holes. He catches up and wins. Had the tournament been 10 holes, so the final day, Scotty Scheffler wins. Like all of these guys had a big lead at one point, and you could say they just ran out of holes. But it's tough to look at and say what should he change, and I don't think you change anything.
Yeah, I don't think you do either. I think it's maybe just limit that maybe one mistake or try to get hungrier in the back nine. Like right, that's where a lot of these tournaments are won and lost is on the back nine on Sunday. So. From his standpoint, he can't, like you said, he had 4 birdies and 6 holes. Like you can't just kind of. To me, it's like is he getting too conservative? Is he's like I'm just gonna like make a bunch of pars and let them try to make the mistake? Like, and the door was kind of open. Like you thought Fitzpatrick made a mistake on 18, like he yanked that 3, but then he
recovered.
He recovered. So I to me, it's like, and that's why like. When he took driver on 18 and hit the beautiful cut off the bunker, I was like, that's him being aggressive, like getting on the throttle. But same time, too, I also thought he was going to make that putt on 18.
Well, him and Scotty both hit really good putts. They just didn't move like they thought they would. I totally thought he was going to make it. I was gutted when he missed again. I tell you what, he knows how to lose. Like,
yeah,
it's hard, especially when you're a guy who's been there so many freaking times.
How about NBC doing like the telestrator of how bad his putting stroke is, like from inside?
Yeah, I mean,
5 feet.
It's ugly, but it gets in the hole. Like,
yeah,
I can't watch a guy who actually had the yips in college. Like, I truly can't watch because I'm like, man, the more I watch, the more I talk about it. I like put it into my mind, and it took me so long to get over.
Yeah.
So anytime like when he missed that and he had to tap in to tie Scotty, again, like it looked ugly, and I was like, shit, I didn't mean to watch that. But Scotty Scheffler, let's talk about him. I mean, again, like he shot 71, then 67, but on Saturday, all of a sudden had like about a 4-shot lead, got to 11, made double, had just launched a wedge over the green, and literally fell off the face of the earth that back time. So then you get to Sunday, jumps out in front, shoots 32 on the front 9, and it's like, all right, he's going to learn. I was like, this guy's winning this at this point. I'm like, he's going to win. He's the number 1 player in the world. He's gone out and got a lot of these tournaments. He knows how to deal with the pressure. He knows how to win. Like, he's going to execute this on this back 9. And kind of the same thing happened. And it was different. He didn't, like, fall apart as much. More the other guys came back, and I think he had a bogey or 2 there. But, again, the storyline was really cool because you had Scotty Scheffler who hadn't won until, earlier this year, and then he just popped off 4 wins. Then you had 2 guys who had been on the tour similar lengths as Scotty. Matt Fitzpatrick, a little longer, hadn't won their first PGA Tour events yet either. And these 3 guys just battling it out.
Yeah, I thought it made for great golf on Sunday. I mean, I was watching people on Twitter talking about how good it was. And for him, like, you looked at his scoring on the front 9 on Saturday and Sunday versus the back 9. And it was, I think he was like 4 over on the back 9 on the weekend and like 6 or 7 under on the front 9, which I mean it's good golf, but like I mean I think we've all had stretches, right? On certain golf courses, you play a back 9 well, or different instances. I don't think it's necessarily like a mental thing for him because we've seen him go out and win things. But on Saturday when he jumped out to 2 or 3 shot lead, I was like, I had a feeling I was like he might actually run away with this thing again, and Sunday might just be kind of boring. But obviously that didn't happen, and we saw some great competition down the stretch, but I think Scotty out of everybody on tour, to me, probably has the most complete game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy who I think he was like a year before Will Zalatoris in the Corn Ferry, tearing it up there. But yeah, I mean, he hits the ball far. He putts it really well. Knows how to get up and down. It proves, and then obviously he's a tremendous ball striker. Like, you just have an all-around game. There's nothing that's super flashy, and that's
correct.
But like, he's just all around a great player. Where like Will Zalatoris, ball striking is his number 1 thing. Colin Morikawa, ball striking is his number 1 thing. So it's pretty incredible. Now, what I would say is I didn't want him to win. I don't know why. And even though he's the number 1 player in the world, it still doesn't feel like he is. Yeah, and there's no reason behind it.
And he said that too going into the event. He goes, I still feel like I'm being looked at as the underdog. And he goes, I like that mentality. And to be honest, I think that's just something he's always going to have, just because like he is the nice guy, right? Like he is the teddy bear. Like people don't look at him like a Tiger. Like Tiger Woods wasn't liked by everybody. Wasn't liked by his competition. Not every fan out there loved him. So, I mean, you go up and down with lots of guys. Like people have their issues with Jon Rahm. People have had their issues with Jordan Spieth. People have had their issues with Dustin Johnson. Like all former number 1 players in the world. But like Scotty doesn't feel that way, and I think that's kind of why he just flies under the radar, because people are just like, oh, that like it's just Scotty. At the end of the day, it's just Scotty.
So I'm looking at the strokes gain data right here. Big data, guys. We know.
Yep.
This is the biggest surprise thing. So off the tee, Matt Fitzpatrick, they love talking about this. All the outlets in the media, obviously they talked about how he's gained 5 miles an hour of club head speed and hitting the ball further. Matt Fitzpatrick was second this week off the tee, gaining 4.78 shots per round. Will Zalatoris 40th, 0.25.
Okay.
Scotty Scheffler was 4th, but that's a crazy thing to look at. Is that's a big thing, because like I've always thought until basically this season, Fitzpatrick's a guy who doesn't hit the ball great. I said on the last podcast he's hitting the ball as the best he has all year,
which I think is safe to say.
Yeah,
obviously.
17 greens in the final round is pretty good. Which is funny for a guy who chips cross-handed, which we can talk about at some point. Which I got to try now.
Yeah.
But I always thought of him as a guy who was really good at just grinding out pars. He was a really good putter and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, he's transformed his game over the course of 3 years, and he's paying dividends. I mean, that's where he's seen this kind of meteoric rise, especially with the confidence gaining these last couple of months, too.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it from, like, kind of backtrack just a hair. I look at the U.S. Open, it was weird. It's like a lot of these events is like, okay, like we looked at the PGA Championship, like all those guys up there were just good ball strikers, right? For the most part, that's how we looked at it. Like this one, like you actually had to be straight off the tee. It didn't really matter if you hit it far or not. Like we saw at Winged Foot a couple years ago with Bryson. Like this one, you had to be in the fairway, and then once you're in the fairway, you have to be a good ball striker too. From that standpoint, so like you needed like two aspects of your games. But like the third thing too is I don't remember a tournament where I saw so many guys miss 3-footers and 4-footers and 5-footers and 6-footers. Like the greens held up too. Like to me, and like that's kind of why I think Scotty Scheffler, why I said what he said, like he has the most complete game on tour right now, is because like he's very good at all three facets of those games. He's good off the tee, good ball striker, can get up and down, and he can putt. Like, and I feel like that you needed that type of game to be successful at Brookline. And I think that's what like a lot of people were worried about, is like they're going to eat this older course up. That's, not the longest thing on tour, but it truly did hold its own. And from Fitzpatrick's standpoint, it like admitted, like he obviously, like when you hit 17 greens, you're doing something right. Like there's no way to really like change that. And then you didn't, like his worst part of the game, like he'd admittedly say, is his chipping. So, I mean, when you essentially you took that part out of your game on Sunday, which obviously boded well for him and obviously made him a major winner.
So I'm looking again with Fitz. His strokes gained putting, what do you think he ranked in the field?
33rd.
42nd.
Okay.
He gained 0.23 shots on the greens compared to everyone else in the field, which is shocking. A guy who, again, we've thought of as more of a grinder who'll make putts, but he put himself in position.
Was Rory number one?
Rory was number, he made like millions of feet of putts. Will Zalatoris, 4th. Will Zalatoris gained 7 shots putting and 7 shots approach.
Yeah.
And then he had a few others, but you gained 15 for the week.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the one area I was like, okay, then I guess people can make the argument now. It's like, okay, like you didn't have, like if you could just putt well, but at the same time too, like you had to get to, like getting to the green was just a challenge this week in general.
Oh, yeah.
But Rory, Rory was weird this weekend. He obviously, the one thing that we talked about with his game was his putting, right? Like, and he's been putting obviously great as well. He'd be great as of late. Don't get talking too fast. But we saw it at RBC. You saw it over the weekend. But the one thing that, like, he just hit like a lot of like dead balls, I guess you'd say, like a lot of balls that came up short to greens, a lot of balls that like you thought should have been like flagged and just weren't. And it was kind of like not depressing to watch, but it was just kind of like, it like just felt like something was off every time they showed him on TV.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, look, I think it's really hard to win back to back. That win at RBC, I think he really wanted to win it, obviously, with all the drama going on within the world of sports. And he's, really been heavy in the PGA Tour's pocket. And we'll talk more about Jay Monahan, but he hadn't really made any statements. And going into the U.S. Open. And Rory's kind of becoming the focal point of that. And Justin Thomas has come out a little bit, but like Rory McIlroy seems like the face of the PGA Tour for the players that are like, we're staying here. And so, a lot of shit he had to deal with leading up to this U.S. Open. He putted the lights out and specifically putted the lights out in round 1. So what it does is I think it creates this perception like, oh my God, he's playing really well. Where in reality, he had like a couple like 30-foot par saves that day where he's 3 under going into Friday. And so we have these high expectations, but he didn't hit the ball well this week. And that's going to happen. I mean, you and I both know you could go 9 holes with hitting the ball really shitty and then turn it around to the back 9, let alone over the course of, last week to this week. And so I think part of it could have been just kind of ran out of some steam and that was part. But either way, I mean, he didn't have his A game and he finished T5. Like,
not a bad weekend.
Yeah. And that's why he's Rory and he's obviously knocking on the door here soon. The problem is, or the bummer is, because with him, it's always the majors. He hasn't won a major in a long time. We got the Open, which usually doesn't fit him perfectly.
Just because putting, obviously putting was a big deal with the overseas.
When the pandemic started, he was playing the best golf in the world by a mile, leading into it, obviously leading to the players, and then you had the majors coming up, specifically the Masters, to complete his career Grand Slam, but you're almost like, shit, he's like peaking right now at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely safe. You can sit there and that's not wrong to say by any means. And but it's been good. I think it's been very good for the game of golf to have him up there, competing.
Yeah.
And I guess I wanted to ask you too before we kind of move on from talking about. There's a few other things I want to talk about from the Open, but besides the guys that finished up top, do you think now this is kind of gets the hump off Fitzpatrick's back when it comes to winning in the United States and on the PGA Tour? Because I think he's been on tour 6-7 years now.
Yeah, I mean he turned pro after his freshman first semester. He said, "Screw school, I'm done." He went to Northwestern, said, "I'm out."
Yeah.
And I don't think he joined the PGA Tour until he was like 21, 22. But yes, I think once you get that win, you really figure out a few things. Now there's kind of like two ways you can go, and the Scotty Scheffler way where you just keep freaking winning.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you see the guy like, oh my God, I just got my major. I kind of got to the peak of what I really wanted to do. Now I'm going to, I can chill for a little bit. I don't think that's going to be the case. I truly think he's going to like pedal to the metal. Another obviously really good player who I think's going to be pushing forward. So yes, I think this is kind of like opening the floodgates. Is he going to go win like 20 tournaments in the next 3 years? Like obviously not, but I could see him winning another one this season or clipping off, one or two, the next couple of years each.
Yeah, I always kind of look at like these tournaments, and not to be like a dickhead or anything, but you kind of look at like some of these major winners like while they're happening, like Fitzpatrick, like, all right, like is he gonna be like a Jordan Spieth or a Justin Thomas and be around, or is he
recency bias?
Yeah, or is he gonna be like a Jason Duffner or Graham McDowell who or a Webb Simpson? Like Webb Simpson's been on tour for a long time. He's had a good career, but he's only won one major.
He's got a players though.
Yeah, and a players, but it's like I always try to like equate like who are those, like is it just a one hit wonder essentially, or are we gonna see this guy win a couple?
Yeah, I don't think he'll win another major. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I mean, I'll come out and say, because I do think a lot of times when you do this right after that recency, it's over under 2.5 majors. Like it's really hard to win these majors. I think he'll win other PGA Tour events, just not majors.
Yeah, I think the hard thing for him too is like arguably the two biggest wins in his career have come at the same golf course.
Yeah. No, I mean,
like, and then like, do you start this like the stereotype like, oh, he can only win in America at Brookline? Like,
yeah, it could be that. I mean, he what did he say? He's like, man, they need to keep coming here for tournaments.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. A few other guys I did want to mention though. Interesting weeks. Nick Hardy, I just want to talk about him. Just know this name. This guy's coming up. Really good putter. He hit T14. He had, I think, 72 on the weekend.
Big Ten guy, too.
Yeah, Illinois Fighting Illini. So,
they had a pretty good team when he was there, too.
Yeah.
It was him. And it's a skate. I should know this because I was at the event last year and at the Rocket Mortgage Classic and watched the playoff. The guy that won the playoff last year, I don't know why I can't remember his name. And then there was one other person too, like all PGA Tour players.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, hey, Mike Small, he knows how to get it done over there.
Yeah.
So just know that name coming up soon. He's been playing on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he's gotten a bunch of PGA Tour starts. I think it was like his 4th U.S. Open though. Like the dude knows how to qualify.
Yeah.
Patrick Cantlay, like no one gives a shit. Top 15. He got 14th place. Like, didn't even know he made the cut.
Him and Gary Woodland were barely shown on
Gary
the
Woodland,
broadcast.
top 10.
Yeah, were barely shown on the broadcast at all for the entire weekend.
Yeah, which I don't know if we want to talk about that at some point. Keegan Bradley, cool that he, hometown guy, thought he was going to be able to like play a little better on Sunday. He starts bogey, which was a bummer.
He was just happy to be there.
Oh like, yeah, he was jacked up. But then I think the guy that we really need to like be like, what the fuck, Jon Rahm. Like,
oh, I thought you were gonna say Joel Damon.
Well, no, I like him.
Well,
like,
I know,
but like
too.
you don't expect much out of him.
Yeah.
Like,
What? Well, real quick on Joel Damon, like the guy wasn't even gonna go to the final qualifier for the U.S. Open, and then his team convinced him, and then he goes, "Well, you can't just not play in the U.S. Open."
Well, yeah, and then he just cashed a big ass check.
And then now he's exempt for, I believe, at least next year. Top 10, top 10 gets you exempt into the following year.
Yeah,
so
and he made $400,000.
Yeah, not bad.
That's pretty good for
after
him.
missing several cuts. And he talked about too, like one of the coolest things that was walking up 18 with the crowd and how ecstatic they were for him. Yeah, that was one of the things he'll never forget. But back to Jon Rahm.
Yeah, obviously. Before we go to some of the like my thoughts on why I love this tournament in a sec, because we'll talk about like the no-namers. Jon Rahm, like man, that was a rough weekend. He's 5 under. He's got the lead. He's going to have a great round Sunday. He makes double bogey. I'm sitting there thinking, shit, he made double Oga in 18. He's not in the final group. This might like set up for him to just go out and freaking get this thing. And he imploded on Sunday. He was one shot back. He ends up finishing, I think, 1 over for the week. Like, just disappointing. I mean, he's defending his U.S. Open, and it's hard to go up. And the round he had on Thursday, because I was comparing him to like the round with Pyatt, like he shot 1 under, and he should not have shot 1 under. He got the most he could out of that round.
Yeah.
But like that's what really good players do. Kind of like Rory shooting 3 under. Like they figure out how to have really good scores in those events or those bad rounds. But, man, he just kind of imploded.
Yeah, well, it was like 1 or 2 things could happen, right? Like, if he gets in the clubhouse, I think he was 6 under at the time. If he gets in the clubhouse at 6 under, tied with Morikawa, then I think it would have been setting up Sunday very well. I think he was literally going in, went to bed that night, was all day Sunday just thinking about that double bogey on 18, which I know like people are going to say like, no, he's a professional athlete. Like he put in the corner.
But yeah, you're right.
But I just firmly believe if he gets in the club, like it's a totally different story maybe on Sunday.
Yeah, but that's why I almost thought like, man, this guy is going to come out fiery. He's going to be pissed about that double bogey, and he might just win by like 5. But yeah, no, I was surprised by that, and he's not had a great year up to his standards.
Yeah.
And so with an opportunity to do something in a final round of a major, I feel like we need to call it out.
You know what the most interesting thing there's a lot of interesting things that happened all weekend, but in the broadcast, I believe it was on Friday, they were talking about, it might have been even Thursday on his last hole on 9. They said the way he sets up like with the 7 iron or even irons, like to prevent himself, he hates going left. So to prevent from going left, he like stands really close to the ball. Which, I mean, we've seen time and time. He's shanked several balls over the years. But I just thought that was a unique thing. Like, even with him, we've seen him shank it. Like, he continues to do that to prevent, like, that's how much he hates. He'd rather shank it than go left, is kind of the analogy I'm using there.
Yeah, no, and he went left on 18 on Thursday.
Yeah.
And the freaking got that bullshit TOI, which...
expand on that. Nope. You got to go off because I was dying laughing.
So this is what happens on Thursday. He's playing with Pyatt and Morikawa, and Pyatt's having a great round. He's 1 under. Pyatt probably now early in the round, Pyatt really was able to make a few saves to stay in it, and then he played after he 3-putted 18 to get back to 1 over. He played incredible golf, hitting ball striking wise, was really giving himself opportunities, and just couldn't make any putts. Pyatt gets in with 1 under. He had a 1-shot lead going into 18 on Rahm. And Rahm hits, so Pyatt hits basically a tee shot similar to what Zalatoris did on 18 on Sunday, where it was this power cut off these bunkers to a dogleg left, which you typically don't do if you're a righty, puts him in perfect spot. Rahm goes to try to do the same thing, double crosses it, 60 yards left, basically into the broadcasting booth. Apparently some people grabbed his ball or whatever.
A couple kids there.
Which they saw, but either way, whether or not they grab it or not, he has what they call TOI, which means he has line of sight because the broadcast booth is in the way. So instead of a guy who just hits it a little in the edge of the rough and has to play it from that shitty lie, he gets to drop the ball, gets a good lie, hits it on the green, makes a 20-footer for birdie, and ties Pyatt on the round. And this is nothing against Rahm. I'm not attacking Rahm. I'm more attacking the rule of TOI.
Yeah.
If you hit a shitty shot, you have to be punished for that.
Yeah.
And what it's almost saying is hey man, let me just hit this as far offline as possible because I know I get to be able to drop it. It'll be an okay line. I have a good angle into the green to hit it on. It just, that bothers me. And you know, what they could do is either, if you're going to get a free drop, give it put a circle in a shitty spot or something. But it just, for him to have what I think it was a 9 iron in with a nice lie from the rough after hitting it 60 yards offline, it was come on. I just think they need to change that rule somehow.
Well, I just thought it was entertaining. It was like your only tweet of the weekend. So that's what I
was pissed because Pyatt should have beat him.
Yeah, I was Sam was fired up about that one, but no, I get it. I do too. Those broadcast booths and stands are so far. Some of the stands around the greens, right, are a lot closer, but these ones felt like they were a decent amount away. That it's all right. What are we actually doing here?
And look, we're talking to a guy who plays at a golf course where you don't really have to hit it straight, but the one thing I know is if I hit the ball offline, hit it way offline because then it'll be on another hole and I'll be fine. So I'm all for that, but it's the U.S. freaking Open. If he hits it on another hole, different story.
Right. I
in the middle of I think it was just in between everything, and it should have been shitty rough.
Yeah, and it was matted down because all the fans were walking over there.
It's just...
That's like that
That's on you, USGA.
that was another story too. Is like some of these guys, like if you hit it bad, like you hit it far right, like
Well, that's what happened on 15.
yeah, like you try to hit it where the fans are essentially, because like those lies weren't that bad.
Fitzpatrick was 225 yards out, hit a 5-iron because he was sitting in that really great lie to like 8 feet or not 8, I think it was like 20. Made the putt. It was a sick birdie, like that's like awesome hole by him. But Zalatoris hits it 6 yards offline and has to like chop one up there because he's in the. And so that's just. Look, I get it. You're not going to make it perfect when you want to have fans. That one I don't have as big of an issue with.
Right.
But, man, when you're behind hospitality or something, I think it's either like you should have to take a penalty stroke or you can try to play the shot.
I think you make them go up to like have a like we've seen in the past, like when people hit it in the hospitality booths, like go up there like
MJ Duffy did.
Yeah, like put them up in the stands and make them go hit in front of the crowd.
And it's just like, look, my whole thing is we're rewarding them for that bad shot. Every player has to play the same golf course. So, like, is that a bad break that maybe I hit it left and I have this big hospitality or broadcast booth my way? Yes, but, like, don't hit it there. Everyone else is avoiding hitting it there. And so, I don't know. Is there a proper answer to this? I don't know. I'm not the guy who's making the rules.
Next time, just aim at the hospitality tent and then try to cut it off that. Well, and if it doesn't cut, then you get,
and that was like, I mean, that was a concern that could have happened. Like, what if Fitz hit it there on 18, like, sniped it way left? Gets a free drop, hits it on the green. I'd be furious right now because I had, my Will Zalatoris bet. But we'll get to the bogey of the week. All right, one thing I did want to talk about was Thursday, Friday at the U.S. Open. More so just like talk about the no-namers and why I had so much fun getting this, like watching this great tournament. I had never heard of Callum Tarrant.
So I took notes while I was watching each, and I have it labeled by round. And that was literally one of my dashes in here. It's like Callum Tarrant. Didn't show him, and all of a sudden he's just in the lead.
Yeah. It was like, but like, I had never heard of, like, I feel like I am a weirdo who knows a lot about, like, both of us. Never heard of the guy. MJ Duffy I had because he, like, Monday qualified a bunch of things. Yep. But you keep seeing these guys crawl up the leaderboard. Duffy got to 6 under. Had a 3-shot lead and then shot 5 over on his back 9 on Friday.
I mean, you kind of knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
At some point.
But it's cool seeing these no-namers kind of be there early on, and it is truly an open tournament. Anyone can go qualify.
Yeah. For me, too, I'm not necessarily always surprised with these no-names, right? Because they have to go through go through sectionals, regionals, Monday qualifiers, final like there's a bunch of different qualifiers you have to get there. And, like, at the time, like, you're beating out hundreds of people because your game is in good shape. So, like, when you come into the, like, U.S. Open or any of those events, like it's not always surprising to see a guy Monday qualifier or something like we've seen at Detroit when it first came back. Like Nate Lashley won, and then Doc Redman Monday qualified and finished solo second.
Yeah, yep.
So like those guys' games are in good shape. So that's what I think was like entertaining at the same time too. Like who's going to be the no name this week that crawls up there?
Exactly.
And they went through the leaderboard of like previous years of like guys, and I can't remember all the guys that they started naming off, but they were naming off guys that like you're like, oh crap, like I remember that story from a couple years ago.
No, and that's what that's just why I loved it that much. And there's certain courses I haven't liked with the U.S. Open. Torrey Pines is a perfect example. I love that course; it's fun to play, but I just don't like it for U.S. Open. But this one it was fun to watch all of those aspects happen, and with these no-name guys somehow compete in this tournament against Colin Morikawas, the John Rahms, the big names. It's a survival test.
I would say like it was a true test of golf. Like U.S. Opens we've seen in the past, like Chambers Bay, Torrey Pines, like let's just stretch it out to 8,000 yards. Like let's make it the length game. Like the fact that the country club and the USGA were able to get this golf course in such shape that it didn't become about distance like we've seen in years past. I think that's one of like the hidden storylines behind this whole thing of how well they were able to set up this golf course to ultimately have your winner come in at 6 under.
Yeah, and that's where it's like the Olympia, or not Olympia, excuse me, Olympic, with Webb Simpson, Marion with Justin Rose. You're right. They're not the long, these long courses. Now, they're old golf courses, old style that they don't have much room to add distance to. But why is it that these create such great events compared to the Winged Foot, which I like Winged Foot, but that's 7,600 yards.
But even like
Chambers Bay or Erin Hills, like I don't need the long distance golf course.
I don't need
LA Country Club, which I think is going to be really cool. It's like 7,800. It can go, but it's like these are a lot more fun to me.
Yeah,
I just there's not a perfect answer as to why. I have more fun watching.
I think it has to do with, the skills of getting up and down out of some of these nasty lies, getting up, like hitting like good iron shots. Like, not to sound like cocky or anything like that, but like we know guys, like I feel like I hit the ball pretty good off the tee box, and obviously like where you don't really see the skill gap, and I feel like you see the skill, like that's the reason why Will Zalatoris has finished at top of these major leaderboards. Same thing with Scotty Scheffler. Like, it's because they have like complete games almost. At least, again, I hate to harp on that complete game aspect, but at the same time too, like Bryson, when he won at Winged Foot, like it's not like he blew the competition out of water with like putting or ball striking. He hit the ball as far down as he could, went and found it, and hacked it out of there. Like,
yeah, and because he was so much further than everyone else, he was able to just hack a wedge onto the green, run it up there because there wasn't a lot of defense in front of the green. And so it's just kind of like chop it up, hit it on the green, and two-putt. Do
you think for the average golf fans, though, like obviously we're kind of golf snobs, like we can say, is I think the average golf fan likes to hit it, like they like to see the 370 drive on the TV.
Yeah, look, I still enjoy seeing that, but I guess my thought is like what I think countered his bomb and gouge mentality, and even Matthew Wolff, who came in second, like both guys who at that point were some of the longer hitters on tour. At Winged Foot, you'd hack it in the rough, you'd have like 120 yards, and you could run a wedge up through the fairway onto the green.
Right.
Brookline has a lot of bunkers in front, cross bunkers, stuff like that, where I can't run a wedge up, or they can't run it. And so, like, Bryson, it's a lot more imperative to be in the fairway for those reasons. And so I think that's where the design aspect's really great. Now, you're just not just going to go throw a bunch of bunkers in front of Winged Foot because it's going to change the complete conception of that golf course. And we're not harping on Winged Foot because I really like that one. Just that's I think what the difference is. And so you can still get those bombers, but I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. And like for example, I think it was the 14th hole, 600-yard par 5. That was awesome to watch this week.
Yeah.
And so there is aspects of the golf course where it's going to be a lot of fun, but I think that there's ways that they're trying to figure out how can we null some of these guys, and that was kind of, I think, an example.
Yeah, I love the fact that they had a par 3 that they messed with like 110 yards, 140 yards, turtleback green that they put on the corners. Like
Scotty doubled it on Saturday.
Yeah, it made for like that. Just goes to show you, like, length doesn't always matter. Like, yeah, a lot of guys knocked it in tight, but like at a golf course like that, I like seeing at least have a couple holes out there that is a good birdie ops. Like the guys are going to put the pressure on themselves to make sure they try to birdie that hole, and then can go through and make a dumb mistake like we saw multiple guys do on Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's time to maybe get into our picks for a little bit. Obviously, we had the DraftKings bet, which we'll chat on in a second.
Brutal.
My favorite, I picked Cam Smith to win. My sleeper to win was Tommy Fleet, but both just completely missed the cut, which the annoying thing is I placed a huge bet on Will Zalatoris, but he was my mortal lock top 20.
Yeah.
So like I got that, but it was like, man, I should have like really put my money where my mouth was there.
Yeah.
And then Louis Oosthuizen missed cut. I didn't bet it because I couldn't on DraftKings, but like, everyone loved him because of his major record in the years past, but he's not playing good golf. He's collecting the bag of money and LIV. So I didn't have high expectations. He missed the cut. Shocker.
Yeah, no surprise, and that's why I picked Phil Mickelson.
Yeah, really went out on a limb with might have been like the worst player in the field.
I mean, yeah, it was not pretty to watch, but. I will say one of the funniest things all weekend, I think Game 6 of the NBA Finals was going on, what was that, Thursday? And, like, they showed Phil walking up 18, and one of the fans yelled out, his, like, Al Horford over 9.5 rebounds. And then you check that night, and it actually hit. So,
so you Phil the gambling.
Yeah, he placed that bet. But my favorite and my sleeper actually ended up tying. I said Justin Thomas is my favorite, and I even doubled down on him on Friday after 36 holes. Like, he was 6 back. I was like, this is the perfect guy. So I lost even more money there too, which sucked.
Yeah, at least they made the cut unlike mine. So.
Yeah.
Who was your top 20 again?
Mortalock Max Homa.
And
I think he was
50th.
40th or 50th or something like that. So
real quick.
Not the best showing for my picks this weekend, but I was at least backing my picks up. I was doubling down on them.
What was my random bet was a playoff.
I
freaking shot away.
I didn't really do a good job at picking a random bet. I was talking like who I thought like the finishers would be of like each like ethnic background, and then I couldn't even remember who I'd say. Like Justin Thomas, obviously I had as the highest American, which was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, my bummer in the whole thing again is I bet on Will Zalatoris there's like an odds boost for a winner, and so I picked him, put $25 on him. It would have been to win $850, and I had Matt Fitzpatrick as the top Euro finisher. So I was like, all right, I'd love for like a little 1-2 finish, but yeah, that would have been a much better winning day. So that's my bogey of the week. Just while we're here, I'm gonna get that out there.
All right, that's fair.
But our DraftKings, this would be my birdie of the week. Not to just bring it on.
Oh, brutal.
It was a shellacking. I had 4 of the 6 guys make the cut. Corey Connor, Shane Lowry missed on the freaking number. But when you have guys finish first and second place, and then Sam Burns, who was like in one of the final groups going into Sunday before shooting $1 million, it's a pretty good week. I think.
I knew I was done after the cut because I think 3.
Yeah, Billy Ho, Finau, and Sung Jae missed the cut. Did Webb make the cut?
No, I think all 4 of those guys might have missed the cut right on the number. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But like, even if like those guys would have made the cut, like your 2 guys also you would have had all 6 guys make the cut. So
yeah,
I think I was doomed from the get go.
But either way, that means we'll get this out sometime. I get to pick your outfit 1 round of golf.
Yeah.
I got a lot of bad birdie shirts. I got some good rollback shirts. I have some vibrant colored pants.
Yeah, see, the problem is like I have vibrant pants and stuff like that.
I might just have to use it. You know what, though? Maybe we'll just have you do another freaking photo shoot like you did this weekend.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about that on
What
my
was
Instagram.
it about?
So we had professional headshots that we had to do here for work. And so people that do like have known me for a long time, like back to my high school days, like there was this thing called like the hood rat pose. And it would be like girls would stand around, make sure they show their ass, and they do the peace sign with like a kissing face. Okay. And I've been doing this hood rat pose for 10 years now. Like I've posted, like my girlfriend and I have gone down to Florida and I've done it like trying to take serious pictures with her. Like you can go back in time and look across like my Facebook and Instagram. Like it's a stable pose that I always do just for shits and giggles. And people were like, I had multiple people was like, what the hell? Like, what is going on here? I was like, people were definitely getting it out of context because I have not posted it in a while.
I saw it and I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So no, we'll figure something out. Maybe I'll just do like the most boring outfit for you because you're a little flashy with your outfits like myself.
Yeah.
So the flashier sometimes the better.
Yeah.
Have you ever worn a bucket or a floppy hat?
I have not. But
okay, so that's for sure going to be in the cards.
I almost bought one actually, not over like last weekend.
Okay, well that'll be in the cards. I'll figure something out. We'll have some fun.
Maybe
with this.
some like knickers or something like that.
Oh, I have some old photos of me in knickers, but we'll figure something out.
See, I don't think you and I are afraid to expand our wardrobe. So
no, not at all, not at all.
Which makes it even more
for the
fun.
content.
Yeah. Now I'm just hoping I go out there and just go low and just
see that would be awesome.
Like shoot a stupid score.
Yeah.
PR.
But we'll have to do that soon.
Because if I do that, then I'd have to wear that outfit every single time. Yeah. But
we'll be rooting for that first time under par, maybe.
Yeah. We'll see.
But either way, well, I guess before we get in, because we have the LIV Golf Talk here in a sec with some big news between them and the PGA Tour, and then we'll do a little preview of the Travelers. What was your birdie and bogey of the week?
Birdie of the week, I got 2 of them kind of. Working from home is awesome. Like being here at Woodward, they let me work from home on Thursday and Friday. I can do a lot of the stuff I need to do and
watch golf.
And I watched almost every single golf shot on Thursday and Friday, besides maybe the last hour on Friday evening. Bogey, that was the first one. Working from second one is TrackMan. Shout out our boy Zeke. I've actually started now that all like my big golf trips and stuff are done and over with. I've actually gone back to practice. And like one of my things I wanted to get better about this year was ball striking. Like fancy that. We talk about a lot of ball striking in today's episode, but it was my goal to get better. I've never been a good ball striker with my irons at all. Like if you watch me play golf, like you'll notice like all my iron, like I don't take a lot of divots, and I was trying to figure out why. Like the club's always been open at the top of my swing. I've always swept the ball a little bit because I've been kind of flat, as people would say. So we're going to try to get my hands a little bit higher in my backswing. And getting the club closed so I can come in a little bit steeper. Well, I was practicing that last week a couple times, and then Zeke brought his TrackMan out to the range, and I was like, just take a look at this. Let's get some numbers. Well, even though I was getting my hands up higher and the face was actually more closed than it's ever been for me, I still wasn't really getting those divots. And like TrackMan has a number, like your low point that you can look at on there. And like, so we looked at it like before and after. This one little tip that he gave me is like, my low point for like an iron would be like right around like either like right around even like 0.0 or like 1 like 1 degree after you hit the ball. Like, but like on like tour average, like a lot of it is like 3 to 6
because they're compressing it.
Correct.
Already. And so they're making the divot kind of after the golf ball is what you're
right.
talking about.
Exactly. And that's something like I'd make kind of the divot right at the ball or sometimes even behind if I hit it fat. So, he gave me this tip he's like, Alex Noren.
Yeah.
Like remember his little pre-shot routine?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, it looks like he's yanking his left shoulder like down into the ground. He's like, you need to feel it. I was like, dude, there's no way I'm going to hit the golf ball. Like if I do this, but kind of with this like new backswing and like that swing thought in my head, I've never like, have you ever been with somebody who hits the ball like really well and compresses it? Like
all the time.
Like obviously you do.
There's a mat. Well, not me, but like I know. Yes, I know.
Yeah,
people.
like even when they're hitting off mats, like there's a certain sound that you look for, and like I was like, damn, I've never had that sound.
Mm-hmm.
I was finally getting that sound because like my numbers, like we finally got the numbers. Like I was like hitting, like my low point was like 5 degrees after the golf ball. I was like, holy shit. And like, obviously everything's going left right now for me because I'm getting the face closed and like, I'm not flipping at it anymore. So like right now, like I thought I had the golf bug bad. And now all I want to do is just go to the range and hit golf balls until like I get this feeling down. But it's really got me excited to play golf because I was hitting like 5 irons, like 230 yards, which I've never done.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Speed training, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's just hitting the ball the way you're supposed to. So that was my birdie of the week. I know it's a little bit long-winded. And then my bogey of the week is hangovers. I got really drunk Saturday night and drank a lot of bourbon and then was just in brutal shape. Thankfully, I didn't really have much to do on Sunday besides like just Father's Day. So I just kind of laid on the couch and thankfully just relaxed and watched golf. But I hate hangovers more than anybody, and I just proceed to just drink too much sometimes, which is its own crux.
Well, it's fun though at the time.
Yeah,
so it's like worth it. Like it's part of being, in your 20s.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I'll grow up one of these days, but today's not that day.
All right, so it's time to move on to the big news.
Big news.
Well, some of the bigger news in golf.
Well, before we get there, like shout out to us recording this on a Tuesday at like 3:30 because shit was firing off this morning when pretty much from the minute you woke up until about 12 or 1 o'clock this afternoon.
And the crazy thing is I think we have more coming out Wednesday and Thursday, which we'll get to.
Yeah, okay.
But let's start with 2 new names who have been added to LIV Golf, the LIV Golf at Pumpkin Ridge. Both players resigned from the PGA Tour. Abe Ancer was announced on Monday, and then Brooks Koepka, which, again, we all kind of knew the rumors, was announced the following day. And so I guess let's first talk about our thoughts on Ancer and Brooks committing to that. I don't think it's a surprise.
No.
We don't know what the reported numbers are. A lot of people are ripping on Ancer because he was a guy who put in a post. He was like, this gives me an opportunity to, he said like grow the game, but I actually think he said it in a different way, but everyone's going to attack him for it. And I kind of want to defend. He said basically grow the game, but like help grow the game in my country, and this gives me more time to do those things.
Yeah.
He's only playing in 8 events. That gives him more access to it. And that's kind of how I took it. Now people are going to be like, you're with the Saudis. How are you? It's just, whatever. It's and I get it. Like, you're taking the money. I get it. But like, I do also think there is some aspects of like more time for family, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you did have guys kind of come out and say, hey, this was a business decision this week, a.k.a. Bryson.
Yeah.
And then Brooks joined. So initial thoughts on those guys.
Abe Ancer, like, I think he's he was in the teens of the FedEx Cup points, which is fine. Like, cool. Like, he's always just been a name that's kind of, flirted with like top 20s and stuff like that. So I don't know if he was necessarily ever going to be able to like really be a dominant force on the PGA Tour. I don't think he was going to be a guy that was marketed on the PGA Tour like some of these other players. So for him, I was like, okay, like that, like no surprise whatsoever. Brooks, we've talked about it slightly in the past, like, and I've talked to people as well too, is like, this is probably one of the least surprising names along with Patrick Reed and Bryson DeChambeau. Like, those guys, again, those are all very, I would call them kind of narcissistic guys that love themselves and think they're, the God's given thing to earth. But for him, the whole way he complained at the U.S. Open and not wanting to talk about it, and kind of shamed the reporters for asking him the questions about it, makes him look like an even bigger ass now than I think it does last week. To me, like, I was convinced for a second. I was like, maybe he's not going to go. Like, maybe he's not. But then, like, to say he's like, I haven't really thought about it. Like, when he said that part, like, I haven't really thought about it. It's like, dude, every golfer in their right mind, like, even like people that aren't on the PGA Tour, like like Sam and I, like we've sat there and thought, like, would you go? Like, is that something like
Yeah.
everybody's thought about it? Like to sit there and say like you haven't thought about it, and then sure enough, 2 days after the U.S. Open, like you were, and he was already rumored going into the weekend.
Yeah. So I guess I want to challenge you on that.
Okay.
Because like, my thought is what he was basically saying. He's like, I'm tired of being asked about the LIV. Like, this is my favorite tournament of the year, the U.S. freaking Open. Like, let's talk about the U.S. Open. Let's stop talking about this shit. Like, obviously, there clearly was some motives behind it. He didn't want to like say anything that would get him in some sort of hot waters, or where he's basically saying one thing and then turning around the next week and doing it. But I took it as he just doesn't want to talk about this anymore because like he's probably going. And he just wants to talk about the U.S. Open because that's his favorite thing to do. So maybe I'm off on that, but
I think all he had to do was like, yeah, I plan on playing at Pumpkin Ridge, and then I think the conversation stops there. Like,
oh no, it doesn't. Then they're like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you taking the money?
Well, you would have gotten those questions out of the way, and then you would have been.
But he's got to focus on the U.S. Open.
That's fine, but like eventually, like you're like. People were just gonna continue to ask questions one way or the other. So like, just come out and say like, don't be a puss about it. Essentially, is where I'm looking at. Is like you've been a guy that's been very vocal about like not being in love with the game of golf. So for like, you should have just had the balls to come out and say like, yeah, I plan on playing in the Pumpkin Reds. Like, you're not gonna get suspended until the ball flies. And I get you want to focus on the U.S. Open, but like. You've been a guy in the past that like has made a lot of things about you. Like, why are you trying to change all of a sudden because it's shining a negative light on you? And that's how I look at it.
I just think he's been very direct, and he's kind of a dick the way he answers things. And he's just like, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about the U.S. Open. I mean, you're right. We've talked about it. He cares only about the majors, and he likes money a lot.
Right.
He couldn't play in the first event, I think, because of the wedding or anything, and so he obviously kept his name hidden, I think, for those reasons. But like in my mind, I don't know. I don't have an issue with him kind of like beating around the bush there.
No, I mean,
I get like other people want to drag him through the mud.
But I think it's just because of how dumb he looks now in that interview. It's like I haven't given him much time to thought. It's like, clearly you have, though. It's not like
did he say that word for word?
He said he goes, I haven't given it much thought about it, and then someone says, wait, you haven't? He goes, no, I'm trying to win the U.S. Open. Like, that was his response back, and then like. There's no way you decide on Monday and Tuesday, like, oh, now I'm going to think about it, and now I'm going to join LIV Golf. That's why I have an issue with the way he was answering the question.
I'll understand that aspect of it. But either way, he joins obviously a number of players who have done it. We talked about Bryson and Patty Reed joining last week. I think, again, the first group of players really took a lot of the bullets, especially Phil. I'm curious how the media acts next week at the Pumpkin Ridge event. I think when we record this podcast, they won't have all of that stuff out yet next week. But it'll be interesting because you'll have the American media, which I think's really been attacking it more than maybe the world. But now you really are starting to get into what the PGA Tour did and their response, which lucky enough we recorded today because they responded today. Now they're announcing everything tomorrow. Jay Monahan's going to announce. And like for the record, Jay Monahan has not really done anything at this point.
No, not really.
Like other than like talking a little bit during the RBC Canadian Open. Like this is where it gets crazy. But it's been reported from a player in this mandatory players meeting on the PGA Tour up at the Travelers Championship that they're gonna change the whole scope of how they do the FedEx Cup. And basically, what we gathered was starting for next season, the fall series is basically not a part of the wraparound year. You're going to start the season at the beginning of 2023, play through basically the normal regular season where it ends now, and then the fall series will be an 8-event series, seems very similar to something else, awarding winners $20 million purses. Like that's the purse. It's very similar to LIV Golf again.
Yep.
And that's going to be the top 50 players over the course of the FedEx Cup will earn those spots. The other guys who don't earn top 50 will then be battling it out somehow for their card. They're still flushing out the details, kind of like the Corn Ferry Tour, blah, blah, blah.
Which is insane to think about.
Yeah, and that one I think like probably 50 through or 51 through like 125 will still, no matter what, get status, but you're going to be playing for better status. I don't know. They'll figure those things out. If you give more access for younger guys to come up and take away some of these like guys who have been on the tour for a while but like really don't do anything, I'll be all for that. But we'll wait to see how that stuff is. And again, Jay has to make an announcement. This is more reported. it was an anonymous player in the ESPN article I read, but he was basically like, this is the most attentive players have really been in these types of meetings. So I'm curious to see what it is, but what's your initial thoughts on basically very similar model to what LIV is? There's just no team aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of good getting rid of the wraparound season for the most part. I think not like, obviously we love golf. We like golf to a certain, there's no hiding the fact that we enjoy the game of golf, right? But I think we can both agree that there doesn't need to be from essentially they're like, if you take out like the wraparound and how it works, like essentially like from January to December, there's always golf that matters technically, besides maybe a little bit of December for like during the holidays there. But from that standpoint, you don't always need, like, there's a reason that a lot of these like sports go on off season, kind of build, like gives you a time off to kind of breathe and get you the need and want to bring that back. Now, I do think the kind of new golf series or playoff series or however this is going to iron out, it is a totally different aspect. But like, it's funny to watch the purses already jump up.
Yeah, like where'd they get the money?
That's kind of where my eyebrows are raised at the moment too. Is like the FedEx Cup already went up. What it jumped?
Well, yeah.
From.
Well, I guess they're just taking the money from but the FedEx Cup. I mean, I guess I don't know if it's able to replace 8 events at $20 million apiece. That's $160 million.
Yeah, but at the same time too, like all of a sudden, like the purse for the U.S. Open, like I don't ever remember the purse in years past being
$18 million. Yeah, the winner getting. Now that might have been TBD, but yeah.
No, I meant like, from the U.S. Open this past weekend was what, $3.4 million.
That's what Fitz won. Yeah,
yeah. Like that's got to be higher than normal. Like to me, it's like obviously they don't
inflation, man.
They don't announce. Well, could be too, but like they don't announce a lot of these purses like until like the tournament actually starts, which is now it's like they're like kind of like we got to start pulling money from different avenues.
Which I'm curious how like inflating the cash in it. I just don't know how that'll happen or go about. But the interesting aspect to me is cool is you have this 50-player series now for a lot of money, but like, are you still going to come up with like a season-long champion? And then like, are these events going to start in August and basically go against football? And that was a big reason that they kind of moved the FedEx Cup up earlier to where they didn't have to compete with the NFL and college football. And now you're basically putting this product that is going to be this big money thing. And I saw a tweet from Kyle Porter. He goes, the interesting thing about this is the thing we'll care more about are the guys below battling for their cards than like the guys actually playing for this shit ton of money.
Right.
Which is true. Like, then there's also there's players who say, hey, like there's clearly 2 tours on the PGA Tour. There's the A Tour and the B Tour. And there's a significant difference.
Yep.
So like, then you have the Korn Ferry Tour, which is like now the C Tour, and you have the European. Like there needs to be some sort of system in golf where like maybe it is a relegation system, and I don't know how you go about doing it because a superstar can go from having a really good year to then the next year being in the shitter. But I don't know.
But like that's what makes that essentially makes what like some of these majors even more lucrative.
Yeah.
Is like you get a 5-year exemption at least into the majors,
exactly.
or like I mean winning on tour in years past, like you get a victory on PGA Tour, like you get your 2-year exemption. So I mean, yeah, apparently the emphasis becomes on winning events.
Yeah, and I'm interested. I just don't like it seems like they announced basically the exact same model. And there had been talk of like team stuff, which I want to see team stuff. I think it would be more interesting. You just have to somehow find your way like rooting and getting emotionally invested, which that's the hard aspect of it. It felt like, hey, we're just copying their model and we're going to figure out these kinks, but this is what we're doing, which is good. At least they're announcing something. Yeah. And I think we'll get more details tomorrow, and we'll obviously talk about it next week. But that's what's going to happen. So Jay Monahan's going to be announcing that 1 p.m. Wednesday. I think the big thing, the big domino, again, in this whole ordeal is what are the majors going to say next year, and if they're going to be okay with it, how are players going to earn world ranking points to get in?
Yeah.
That's the massive domino, is this world ranking point aspect. And now there's rumors that we're going to find out, I think Thursday is basically when the European Tour is going to announce, but there's rumors swirling that the Saudis might be trying to buy the European Tour, which we talked about. Dustin Johnson applied for membership, some of these guys, so they can go earn world ranking points to play in these events. Now, I think it was back in January or October, the PGA Tour and the European Tour announced the strategic alliance, which was basically nothing other than like, hey, there's a few crossover events. And so the challenging aspect for the European Tour, we talked about last podcast, was they don't make money unless it's a Ryder Cup year where they're hosting it. So they struggled to make money. And so they've already aligned themselves with the Saudis they had a few tournaments there, but like then they aligned themselves with the PGA Tour. And if they're like fully like, hey, we're not going to do this LIV Golf thing, you basically become a feeder tour for the PGA Tour, which they already have the Korn Ferry. And so how does that feed into that? Is it the new feeder tour from Europe? And then I don't know how it's all going to work out. And I'm almost to the point where I do truly think if LIV somehow buys or they align with the LIV, they let these players and LIV join the tour, it's going to really create an interesting aspect within the game of golf, because all of a sudden they have world ranking opportunities. And now these players can play. And like, what do you do with the world ranking system? How do you disband these things? Like, it'll create a lot of interesting controversy. And like these next 2 days are very exciting for me to just see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and my brain, like honestly, like while you were just in there saying, just kind of started spiraling of like all the possibilities of the cap is like you're going to have guys that could pledge their allegiance to the European Tour, and then obviously you got you guys that pledge your allegiance to the PGA Tour, and obviously the PGA Tour is going to have to answer to get the money in the same boat. Eventually, like what you could possibly see is not necessarily like a Ryder Cup fashion, but essentially two like successful leagues that
I would love it,
that could operate. And then I don't know, I wouldn't say you get things cordial, especially if like things are still being backed by like Saudi, like the PGA Tour isn't going to agree to do things with them, but like then the game of golf just becomes predominant if you start getting events against each other, or if like the majors let these guys come in and play against each other. I think from the team aspect for both these things is they got to do something to where these teams stay the same for like a year.
Yeah.
Or to like the changing it each week, like that doesn't really give me a team vibe to it.
Maybe you have 6 guys, and we could spitball ideas
forever.
Yeah. So I don't even need to do that right now. Yeah. I think where I go with it is if European Tour somehow does align with the Saudis or with the LIV Golf League, I'll call it that from now on, not the Saudis. I think what happens is like the big concern everyone talks about is the shitty product in the game of golf.
Yeah.
Which it hasn't been good for a while, but when we get these events where a lot of the superstars are in it, it does become better.
Like we saw over the weekend.
Yeah, and being that this LIV Golf thing is pulling some of these players away from these tournaments, it's damaging the product. I just don't think like week over week the product's going to be much worse than it is already. And what it might do is really heighten the majors, assuming they can still play in the majors. And so that's where I find there potentially being good coming out of this. So I don't know. I could speculate all you want. I truly think if the European Tour does somehow do some sort of handshake deal with LIV Golf, then the PGA Tour is in a tough spot.
Yeah, I think that's
but like if I'm the European Tour, I don't make a lot of money.
They're kind of in the same boat as these players.
And so if they align themselves with the PGA Tour, like what, they're becoming a feeder, and they really like I don't see how the European Tour has many options other than to somehow align themselves with that if they want to stay afloat and let these big names play in their events. So it's just
or do they become a combined tour somehow?
World Golf Tour.
World Golf Tour underneath the PGA Tour brand or something along those lines with this new format of like these guys on the European Tour can compete each year to get tour cards or whatever that may be. So like the possibilities are really endless with the game of golf, which is essentially we've never seen this before. Like we haven't. Like you've talked about it with other sports and other like entertainment.
WWE, baby.
Like it's going to be truly interesting to see what happens, because like it's time to it's time to get serious. Like some of your biggest names, like a 4-time major champion in his 30s, like he's leaving. Dustin's left. Like it's no joke from this standpoint, at least for the PGA Tour. Like you're losing high profile guys that have made money for your tour for a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think they've gotten out 8 of the top 50 in the world or so. So I mean, like.
Look, there's still 42 other guys that are on.
But it's interesting, and so we'll obviously get more updates. I think this week, we can speculate all we want, but again, it's pure speculation.
But those are at least the particulars of what we got as far as like 4 or 5 o'clock today on.
That we're just providing the information to our fans, to our loyal listeners, Lippin Putts listeners.
Yeah, here's a guy that we even talk about before I think we move on from the LIV Golf. So we good with the LIV Golf stuff? I don't think we really had anything else.
I don't have much more to add.
and we'll talk more about it next week, I'm sure. Colin Morikawa, obviously the saga that went on with him this morning is like he was another guy that took PGA Tour out of his bio on social media.
Did he?
Yeah, that
was why. That's what caused, because there was speculation of him and Victor Hovland maybe going.
Correct. And then it came out that, he pledges allegiance to the PGA Tour and that he's staying. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I want to win majors here and the history and everything like that. And then he did it in a smart way. And then at the end of his Twitter thread, he said, I'm just going to go back to pouring my cereal into my milk now just to, get people talking. And Justin Thomas commented back. He goes, I'm not really necessarily worried about where you're going. I'm necessarily worried about like what you're doing with your cereal.
Yeah. Like who actually does pour their, like I do milk over cereal.
I do too.
Like what? Like it's just,
that is a thing though. I would bet like 15% of the population does that.
That's high. But it was funny that's what he posted and like people like took that. It's good, but still 3 names that have really not come out and said one thing or the other. Xander, Cantlay, Hovland. We'll just see.
Yeah.
On these guys. That's all I'm saying.
And Cantlay is a guy that, just won the FedEx Cup last year and made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So,
but money talks.
Yeah, it does.
So, we got the Travelers Championship this week. It's a fun event. I actually kind of enjoy the back 9. It usually makes for excitement.
Good field coming in.
It's a good field. The mandatory meeting brought a good field in. Probably the most memorable moment of this tournament was back in 2017 when Jordan Spieth holed out from the bunker in a playoff to win against Danny Berger. There's been a lot of exciting golf on the PGA Tour lately, the back-to-back weeks. Hopefully they get a third one. This one, but like you talked about, it's a pretty freaking good field heading into the week. I'm going to try to pull it up for us right now.
Justin Thomas is in it. Rory's in it. Brooks Koepka's even in it.
We'll see if that's still the case.
And
Scotty Scheffler, Cantlay.
Yeah, that's part of the whole deal. Like these guys aren't getting suspended from the PGA Tour until the actual balls fly in one of these LIV Series events. So, but nonetheless, I was actually shocked about some of these guys, because some of these guys have played. Justin Thomas is going to play 3 weeks in a row now.
Well, yeah, same with Rory, Thomas, Scheffler. They all 3 of them played in Canada. It's exhausting, man. That's a lot of golf for them, and
especially when they're getting ready. We're a month away essentially, or 3 weeks away from the Open over in St. Andrews too. So you think these guys would kind of use this time to take some time off, but obviously,
my guess is they'll take the week off after.
Yeah,
except for Brooks, he'll be in Pumpkin Ridge.
Yeah, that's kind of like the battle you have there too. So,
so who do you got to win? We're just gonna do one pick this week, winner.
Mine's kind of a little bit of a long shot, but not really because of how he's been playing golf. And we've talked about him on this podcast. Is I got a good feeling about Keegan Bradley this week. Data
golf gives him the fifth best chance to win.
See, but
his odds aren't the 5th highest.
Yeah,
just for the record.
But I did not have data golf up in front of me, but something is just telling me Keegan's gonna have another solid week this week, and he's got his putter situation figured out after belly putters got taken away from him. So from
plus 2,800.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Keegan this week. Let's go Keegan. Who you got?
I went back and forth on 2 guys, but I think I'm going to go with this guy. He had a good first couple days at the U.S. Open. Didn't have a great weekend, specifically Sunday. I'm going to go with Aaron Wise. He's been playing pretty good golf this week. I don't like the big names. I just think there's a lot of other stuff they're dealing with, and being that they just came off the U.S. Open, I like Aaron Wise. The other guy I did think of was Mito Pereira. I think it's not a no-namer, but a guy who's been playing pretty good golf this year will get a win who hasn't really won yet this season. So
the only reason why I think the big name guys are going to be up there is because they're trying to essentially stick it to the LIV golf guys.
Yeah, they're playing for something.
Yeah, it seems like it's really ignited just golf in general. Obviously we've had people talk to us about LIV golf that I never thought would ever talk to us about it. So it just seems like golf is heightened right now and it's getting a lot of coverage. So why wouldn't you want to market yourself and try to play good golf, which I get guys want to win every single week, but there's definitely something different in the air right now, which bode well. And I guess a good reason that a lot of these guys are probably playing this week too is that it's not too far from Brookline and where the U.S. Open, it's at TPC River Highlands in Connecticut.
Yeah,
so
in Hartford.
It's literally right around the corner essentially from where they just played. So I think that makes the, them to just sit there and think like there's no reason for me not to play since I'm already on this side of the state.
Yeah. I will say, according to Data Golf, really good value bet it would be Sung Jae Im to win. Data Golf gives him, they say that his odds should be like plus 2,400, and his odds are 2,800 on DraftKings.
I'm pretty sure Sung Jae just screwed me in the DraftKings.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Maybe
he's fresh. He's fresh compared to these U.S. Open guys. I'm just saying.
Why? Because he got cut over the weekend?
Yeah. Aaron Wise had to play 4 rounds.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Keegan Bradley had to play 4 rounds with all of his hometown fans.
Yeah, and I guess they could have gone to the club on Saturday and Sunday and gotten extra practice rounds in, too.
Either way, I got Wise, you got Bradley.
Yeah.
We'll both miss the cut, and we'll look like idiots.
I've at least haven't had any of my picks miss the cut, really, besides the DraftKings guys, so.
Well, you had some the couple weeks before.
No, I've been staying hot. Not staying hot, but like my guys have been making the cuts at least. I can't remember who I had in weeks past, if I'm being completely honest.
Now I'm pulling it up.
But I'm pretty sure at least my guys are making the cut. They're just not really like, they're finishing in like 40th or 50th spot.
Let's see. Epi 3. You took, Cam Smith got T48. He made the cut after shooting like $1 million at the Memorial.
See, made the cut. So at least, you can at least bet on my
And
picks.
you took Colin Morikawa that 1 week.
Yeah.
When Billy Horschel won.
Yeah. Did he make the cut that week or no?
No. He missed the cut.
All right. Well.
Either way. Nonetheless.
Yeah.
We'll see how we do.
Yeah. But
we should keep a season-long race on how we're doing on these things.
Like our own like FedEx Cup standings?
Yeah.
What do we get at the end of the year? You think?
Maybe we just earn the FedEx Cup points for the guy that we picked to win.
No, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start it like we'll figure that out.
Well, the season's kind of coming to a
we'll flush
close.
these details out shortly.
Maybe we'll get people involved, like a season-long pool.
Oh, there you go.
Stay
Do a
tuned.
little DraftKings.
Little Lippin Putts.
I know a guy who's like a
something?
25-person league. We just try to buy him like the Saudis.
Yeah. Pay for people to get in.
Shout out to Jim. Yeah, it's a buy-in.
Yeah,
But
there you go.
Either way, good episode.
Yeah.
Matt Fitzpatrick, shout out to him.
Yep.
Shout out to Willie Z.
One last thing. I guess one last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up. I know you got to go, but NBC, I know a lot of people, they got knocked for a lot of their coverage over the weekend, and rightfully so. But I will say the coolest thing that they do over the weekend, I think CBS does this too when they have the coverage, is the camera, when they go up and take a picture of the lies in like the rough or the bunker or something, like, and give you like the kind of like that 3D effect.
Yeah.
I think that's the most badass thing that any sporting event does anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like,
it really gives you good ideas to like what they're trying
I'm
to
getting
do.
to a point where I need it on like every shot. I was like, wait, why didn't they, like, I almost want to see it, like, show me the ball on a tee.
Yeah, why aren't they doing that in the Travelers now? No.
Yeah, like, part of me is like weirdly addicted to watching that like pop up on the side of the screen, and like the way they do like a Ken Burns effect, like go in and out of it. I'm a big fan of that. But
I will say Mike Wan did acknowledge, shitty, sorry about the coverage. Basically, it was just a shit ton of commercials on Saturday, which was like the best day, and people like flipped on them. But he was like, "Hey, we'll be better. We'll figure it out."
Yeah,
So,
well, you have to, because like that's where people want to come in, and like that's one of like LIV Golf Series like sellers is like watch more golf.
they don't have commercials now. That might be because they can't get any advertising.
Right.
But we'll talk about that's a different issue.
Yeah, and then like the Thursday, Friday, like bouncing back, he had to go from Peacock to.
I didn't have a problem with that.
I didn't either, because I had all the platforms. I know I get people didn't have Peacock, like they couldn't see like maybe some guys finishing on Thursday and Friday. Like it wasn't a big deal to me, but I could see why people like it was very strange. But at least you got the coverage all day.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. People used to like, are they complaining that you have to switch from Peacock to USA to NBC back to USA to Peacock? But it's like, hey, back in like 10 years ago, you just had 6 hours of coverage.
Yeah.
So like at least we have an access to watch everything.
And even like, not to knock the Masters, I love the Masters, but like you only get featured group coverage up until 2 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock. And I get you're getting the guys you want to see, but at least like with the U.S. Open, they showed you.
They had a broadcast the whole day.
They had it all day, and then I think even at the end of round 2, they had showed every single person that had played in the entire field at least once. Right? Yeah. So
shout out to them for that.
Yeah.
I think the commercial load they'll figure out.
Yeah.
But that'll be associated with LIV Golf. So it's not bad. Maybe it's not a bad thing for the game. But
yeah, we'll see how it all unfolds. And like we said, unfortunately, like we're recording this on a Tuesday, so drama's going to unfold Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll recap it all in next week's episode. So hit them far and hit them straight.
Mm-hmm.